Hi, my name is Shelley Flett, and I'm a transformational leadership trainer and executive coach. I'm also your dynamic leader host. My intention with every episode is to offer you, as leaders, insights and strategies on how to become more effective in your role, to be kind and to be strong. You'll have the opportunity to expand awareness. It is with greater awareness that you find greater choice, greater adaptability, and greater effectiveness. If you'd like to learn more about the work I do, please visit shelleyflett.com. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hi everyone, and welcome to another Dynamic Leader conversation. So today our conversation centers around a topic that resonates really deeply with so many leaders, myself included, and that is the professional paradox, striving for success without sacrifice. The paradox, for those who've tuned into the Dynamic Leader podcast, is something we focused a lot on last year. It's something that I spoke to a lot of leaders about over and over and over and over. And I think the conversation makes sense to continue this year, given the environment that we're working in, the constantly moving parts, navigating the tension between ambition and well-being, and being able to drive performance as well as maintain well-being and resilience. I guess the question that we're going to delve into is, can you truly achieve success without compromise? And to help answer that question today, I'm joined by Nancy Ho, who is a seasoned thought leader, a life strategist, and clarity messenger with over 26 years of experience guiding professionals towards holistic success. She's empowered more than 10,000 individuals, that includes C-suite executives and business owners, to strike the delicate balance between professional achievement and personal fulfillment. Nancy, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So today we really want to talk about, mindset and habits and strategies and all of those things that help leaders to be effective and also fulfilled, not just in their career, but in their lives in general. And so if we think about, defining what sustainable success looks like, you've worked with over 10,000 professionals. Oh my gosh, that's a huge number. On achieving success without sacrificing personal well-being. How would you define sustainable success today in the workplace?
But before I define that, I think most of us sort of got to segue to what success means on the external environment. Let's call it external, on the external aspects, right? I remember while I was kind of like in my 20s. Yeah. Now I'm way beyond that. Okay. There was this 5 C's that success means, this 5 C's. And the 5 C's means cash, cars, condominium, club membership. Yeah. Yeah. It was the thing. Okay. I can't remember the 5th C now. Okay. So it was like success means all of this. So if you have all these 5 C's, you are successful. Yeah. Where I was like,
so very materialistic.
Very, indeed. Very. Okay. And not only just that, it's also keeping up with the Joneses. So 30, 40, 50s. That was 40 over years ago. So you can guess my age now. Okay. I'm 61. All right. So when I was growing up in 20s, that was the thing. So, well, having external achievement, I call them external, materialistic achievement, is nothing wrong about it or negative about it. But when a person becomes so, one-sided, I'll call it, then something will give. All right, at the expense of. Right? So while I work with a lot of C-suites and even middle managers and all that, what give? Relationships. Right? Because we only have 24 hours. So if we're going to spend so much time, okay, so-called, going after the 5 C's, right? Then obviously there's not a lot of time with the family, with your children, let alone yourself. Right? And then health. Because when people are chasing after something, there's pressure. And that pressure means high cortisol level. Hence they become sick. It's just logic in that sense. But if a person keep looking at success on the external, on the material, then they do not even entertain that. Because what is most important is achieving, as I mentioned, let's say the 5 C's, right? So then when they start to look into their health, sometimes it's very far too late. Often it's not wanting to sound morbid, it's a fact again. We know that often the person that seems to look healthy and have it all on the surface and then got diagnosed, which just happened. Just happened not so long ago. A high flyer, really, really a high flyer. He got everything, more than the 5 C's, all right? And what happened then, he got leukemia. And it was just discovered like this, at a snap of a finger. It's not like they could see it coming. Yeah, he was just lying in bed. The wife was coming back from the airport. So I was kind of surprised, like, hey, why is he not here to pick us up, So I said, okay, maybe he's busy. They went home, big house, went up to the 4th level. And then it was kind of early. He thought that, okay, the husband may want to sleep in, but it's kind of strange on a weekday to sleep in. And then they discovered he was pale. He was looking pale, and they rushed to the hospital. All right, when they rushed to A&E, they straight away warded him and then discovered he got leukemia. So what I'm saying, Dan, in short, is like, people only realize that, but sometimes it comes all too late and at the price, right? At the price.
So given, because I've never heard of the 5 Cs, and I don't know whether in Australia that was, so I don't know. I'm going to explore that a little bit now. Definitely keeping up with the Joneses is something that, you observe. But I think I grew up on a dairy farm. I had a country upbringing. So I wasn't exposed to a lot of materialism.
Okay.
But given that you were exposed to that in your 20s, so really kind of important formative years of your career, how much did you buy into that? And was there a cost to you if you did?
Yeah, I think I must have bought into 99% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a young person,
And then
as a person, definitely like, oh God, I want that too.
what was what was the changing point for you?
Yeah. I've always said I'm always blessed, really blessed. As like even success came early for me, and that all of that. I've got it. Although I only have my dad for 3 years of my life, but I was programmed with love and everything else. So I'm blessed. Okay, I didn't even have a pimple on my face. Okay, what am I getting at? At about 28, thereabout. Okay, I discovered that there's a cyst in my womb. Yeah. And then those days it's not as advanced as now. You can just do keyhole thingy. So they said, the gynae said, all right, we have to do an operation, go for the op. We have to operate, and then we'll then realize whether it's cancerous or not. Because those days they can't discover that until they take it out. But that's not the highlight. The highlight was in the midst of operation, we find that something doesn't look quite right, meaning my womb. They will have to take out the whole womb. Whoa. Yes, at 28 years old, you don't want to hear that.
No.
And especially I was thriving, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
I was like, having a lot for a young 28 person, all right? Not comparing anybody, but at 28, I already had a lot. So it's like, no, I actually stupidly went to a denier. No, it cannot be true. As I said, I don't have a pimple on my face as a teenager. How could I have that? So I actually dragged that for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years. So I didn't want to bother about it. I was still like crazy about, the 5 C's thingy. And then 2 years later, I woke up one morning and I said, don't be funny. And by then, so I went back to the gynae. I said, all right, check it again. Maybe it might disappear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you may, right? Miracles, huh? No, you have grown to the biggest abalone you can find in the whole world. Yes, and there was a second one also.
Wow.
Okay, so thank goodness, yes, I went for the op and it was not cancerous. So that was my so-called wake-up call that yes, I want success, but not at the price of or at the expense of. So I shifted so-called not chasing, but looking inward.
Mm. So the five C's just provided this really convenient opportunity for you to deny and ignore what was actually going on with your body. And when you couldn't ignore your body any longer, something had to give, and it was, you had to give up on the five C's, or what did you, like, how did you find that sustainability?
What is actually more interesting, okay, when I actually looked inward
Yeah.
and have that, let's call it balance. But of course, I don't mean balance as the exact balance, but balance as not one-sided, not focus only one aspect. Actually, I became even more successful with fulfillment.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. And the more successful is not just all about like, as I said, the cash, the condo, the cars and all that. But more so, I was more focused on my purpose.
Mm.
I was focused on my why. Why do I do what I do? So when that come about, so-called the outcome, all right, we call success, the outcome becomes natural.
Mm.
In fact, one become more authentic, one become more truthful, in fact, more confident because you have your why. I'm clear about my why. So there are always opinions, there are always critiques, there are always whatever, right, out there. Maybe sometimes you even get haters. I mean, it's life, right? But it doesn't matter because when one is so true to their why, it doesn't matter about all these critics. It's not an attitude like I don't care, but it's more so, all right, hang on. If I hear of, I read any critics of some sort, I will reflect. Is there some truth? If there's some truth, correction. If there's no truth, whatever. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Whatever. I mean, everybody has an opinion, so it doesn't matter. All right. So I will use the word spiritual, and spiritual does not mean a religion,
Mm.
right? It means really energy. It means being connected. It means being one, right? If you're going to the non-duality thing. So yeah. So when that happened, like I said, you're more authentic and things that you do is even easier, if any, for lack of expression.
Mm.
Not easy as without effort. That's not what I mean.
So if I think about leadership, I mean that's definitely what I'm passionate about and can talk about all things leadership, and I'm lucky to be in a role that is self-created where I get to work with leaders. But I've also had to balance out this, like, what does sustainable mean for me and what does that look like? And I've
Right.
had to go from the bigger picture why to more of a micro, to go in my role. I'm not just doing things that are aligned with my purpose because I have to invoice and follow people up and all the admin, all the stuff that comes with that. And so, and I'd imagine, your experience is similar, that not everything you do day to day aligns directly with your why. How much, because I think observing, how we're spending our time and attention and energy really does tie into that sustainability. Like if I'm fretting over needing to do the things, but then not actually doing them, that actually can draw the energy from me. And that's not sustainable. So, given that you're doing something that you love, how do you balance at the micro level?
Look at it this way. When you really have your why and your purpose, the those things that so-called not as enjoyable is not such a thing in our head. What needs to get done, get done. I mean, like you said, all the invoice, all the admin. And today, in today's world, it's so easy. Outsource,
Yes.
right? Outsource. So again, okay, so after we know our why, our purpose, our meaning, next comes strategy. So we can't have a why and our purpose, and then we just sit around and things will happen. Right? You can't do that. So we need strategy. For example, leaders should have personal branding. And personal branding is not those that are just you are entrepreneur or you are on your own, you're a consultant on your own, then you talk about personal branding. No, in fact, actually, I'm helping quite a number of people. There's this very senior, just recently, a very senior partner with KPMG. And then I, coached him and I look at it, I said, your personal branding, your visibility is weak. We know it sounds, again, not so positive, but it's a fact that I said anything that we do right now can cut short. Right? I mean, reorganization, right? Restructuring, right? Is the buzzword now.
Yeah.
Correct. So you never know anything can cut short.
Mm.
Even no matter how good you are, it's got nothing to do with just your abilities, right? It's just there's a bigger picture to it, right? The organization, so on and so forth. The only thing that remains constant is change. We know that in theory, but most people are like, don't even entertain that other than the theory, right? So we need our personal branding, we need our visibility. We need to keep stepping up, leveling up. And that's not chasing after something. But it's really about, who are you? What do you stand for? What are you contributing? All of that.
And coming back to that, how regularly? Because that changes.
How regular meaning?
When you are like, who am I? What do I want? How do I want to contribute? What's the
Okay.
legacy, etc. How often do you come back to that? How often do you recommend or when you're working with people?
Right. Every 3 years.
Every 3 years. That seems like a long time.
No, I have okay, I got to explain this. I have a North Star vision framework. In
Ah,
fact, I have an article in this Arabic business just came out a week ago, and I actually wrote about it. All right. Again, right? These are all strategy. When I talk about personal branding, I go into my own personal branding too, right? So I have this PR consultant that will pitch for me. 2 weeks ago, I was in LA Weekly. And then last week I was in Arabic business. And of course, why do I want to be in this publication? I've got to know my strategy, why I do that, right? Okay, so on and so forth. So I've got this framework called North Star. And in North Star vision, as you know, in business, we talk about North Star. But in this case, I'm just borrowing the metaphor. I have 5 arms.
okay.
The 5 arms are as follows, right? Family and friends, health, fitness and health, finance and wealth, faith and spirituality, impact, freedom, legacy. So clarity, right? I'm the clarity messenger. Okay. So we have to have the clarity that each of this arm, I call it each of this arm, what do we want? So let's say somebody have a newborn now, 3 years later is a toddler. The time and energy spent is different, especially a mom, right? At least you don't have to wake up too much in the night when they are 3, all right, 4 compared to the newborn, right? And then or the kids has become late teens. Again, it's very different. Or they now go to college, right? So some of the leaders may be empty nester. So the dynamics is different. So the 3 years, all right, it doesn't sound like a long time because it's just like, think about you want to plant a tree, a fruit tree, right? We have the seed, we water, we fertilize, right? We need time for it to grow, right? Then the 3rd year is so-called the crops. And then by then, you want to think about the next 3 years. Yeah, that's how I look at it. But most important, when you're clear about all these 5 arms, that remember I talk about fitness and health. Yeah, so you're clear. That means what? Come back to strategy. What do I need to do in order to be healthy? So my fitness program is as follows. Example. All right. So very clear about how we, like you just said, the time and energy spent.
Yeah.
But most important, In the middle of this North Star is our business or career. Because this business or career got to support what we want out of these 5 arms. Say, for example, right, I'm in a job that is high stress, absolutely high stress. Let's say an air traffic controller. That's very high stress. It's not just a perceived high stress, it's seriously high stress, right? And then I said, for my, faith and spirituality, I want a calm, centered balance. That's not going to work.
So you're looking for alignment, or you're looking
Yes,
for
alignment. Yes, support.
so when we talk about the paradox of the alignment and the paradox, how do they because they don't seem to, yeah, how do you get it to fit in that example that you just gave?
Okay, paradox, as we know, is, let's call it the flip side of success.
Mm,
Okay, right? So the flip side of success that we first started talking, right? That at the expense of, all
yeah.
right? So why at the expense of? Because one is not looking inward, it's just looking outside, right? So when we have this North Star framework, we are looking inside.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about, but I said family and friends, right? So you're not just looking at oneself alone, like impact, freedom, legacy. So it includes others, whatever the others means. All right. So once you're clear about that, and then having the and knowing that what you do supports it, or you make some adjustment. Okay, so perhaps I'm not saying that, hey, people just quit what you're doing, but maybe some adjustment. Uh, Maybe not immediately, but maybe, in a few months, 3 months, 6 months, again, strategy,
Mm,
so that we can get to where we want. And
mm,
hence why 2 years. You see,
mm.
in fact, if you look at it, goal setting, even for a year, look, it's March already.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it goes so quick.
Amazing. Yeah, so we set goal for the year and the first quarter is almost done.
Yeah,
Yeah, so 3 years isn't long. It's just about right to
I
make
like that.
adjustment, changes,
Mm,
roots. And then again, when we get what we get, then is there some adjustment again? Is there some misalignment issue? Then we have time to adjust and not feeling rushed.
mm. So I can imagine, I love that exercise, the North Star exercise. So I can imagine that with adjustments, you get to choose in 3 years. Do I want to adjust the inside, the career, or are there adjustments outside? And that some 3 year projections or some times that you do this North Star activity, one might lead to more of an adjustment than something else. If
Sure.
someone's never done that before and they're like, well, my career is my career, where I want to get to in 3 years' time is not where I am now. Do you then work on the inner, you do the inner reflection and you decide this is what I want, and so this is where I want to go in my career, or could you start the other way, or is it really up to the individual?
I would actually do this first. Whenever somebody says, I want this, and I will ask the question, why?
Mm, yeah.
Right? Example, I want to be very, 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 okay, ultra successful. Why?
Mm, yeah.
Is it why? Right? Even someone may say like, I want to take a world trip for a year. Okay, I'm just giving different example. Again, I will ask why, because a lot of times we just look at not follow the Joneses in this case, but it's more so like we see something, we get enticed, and it's like that's a good idea,
Mm,
right?
yes.
And then we go for it. But why?
Mm. Yeah, like a little kid. Very annoying, but very powerful and profound. Sometimes I'll actually add to that, sometimes I'll ask, what's important to you about that? If I want to be ultra successful, for me, that would be about leaving a legacy, about leaving an imprint that will help, generations to come kind of thing. So then you're looking at, well, what does that do for me in terms of perhaps spirituality or, my contribution to community? And so then you're looking at this interconnectedness and you're
Correct.
looking for anything that's out of alignment.
Yeah, correct. Yesterday I just had someone. He's a very senior, in fact, director of HR. Okay, the whole, in fact, I can't remember the details, but it's like he covers not just Asia Pacific, but around the region, like even right up to Dubai, to India, to Finland.
Mm.
Practically we have many offices. So very successful, highly paid, everything else, right? So when I questioned him the why, he went like, I spent a lot of my life, my time in my previous company, and I grew fat.
As in
Yeah,
literally fat.
grew fat. I grew
Right.
fat, and I
Okay.
was so stressed. So now I'm not prepared to do that. Now this is the other side of it, right? Now I'm not prepared to do that. Okay, good on him. Now he take care of himself, like he has self-care and so on and so forth. But he became so, in his own words, I'm detached from my job. Yeah.
Mm. It's the pendulum.
I still care for my people. I said, now this is interesting. Now I'm quite in people's face, right? Because the truth is the truth. I said, this is interesting. If you say you're so unattached, how can you tell me you care?
Mm.
Right? Don't make sense. But again, you chose, right, to grow fat because you didn't want to look after yourself. You can't blame the job,
Mm.
correct? It's how we use our time,
Yes.
right? I exercise 5 times a week, first thing in the morning. Some days, of course, could be shorter and some days longer, right? Depending on my schedule. But still, I make it a point, stuff like that. So the other side, when people start to make adjustment, they make adjustment again without the why. They'll just go, it's like they swing,
Mm.
from this end to the other end.
Yeah. Where and I think, that achieving sustainability is making sure that you're not swinging from one
Correct.
extreme to the other.
Correct.
That and I guess that then ties in with your 3 year and then having strategies that sit with that is to go, what's realistic. It's important for us to aspire to something
Correct.
more or something different than what we have, but we don't need to kill ourselves or burn ourselves out in the process.
Exactly. Okay,
Mm.
like now I'm doing quite a bit of giving back,
Mm.
right? Giving back is not just all about money, but really what, especially when people come to say in their 60s, they should be kind of quite relaxed by then. Not relaxed, not working, not relaxed as just lying on the beach, all right? But relaxed as you don't, need to be like too anxious about the children and all that. I mean, taking the fact that they don't have children too late. All right. So example, the giving back, like there's this organization called IJM, International Justice Mission. So what they do is they actually save, especially girls, young people, especially girls in Southeast Asia from modern day slavery
Mm.
and sex exploitation. So sad, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can't live in a world. Of course, we can say we don't care. I mean, no, I can't go to sleep. I care. I care as like, what can I do? Right? So besides, whatever we can contribute in terms of funds, of course, they do need that. I actually talked to them. I said, the girls especially needs life skills,
Mm.
right? Because, they've been like locked up in, whatever camp, labor camp, right? So they don't have a lot of life skills. So yes, you can even give them a shelter and a job and all that, but how do you go on with their life?
Yeah.
Then second, they have this trauma, obviously. So again, if that trauma is not taken care of, then it stays with them in their life.
Mm.
So I've got my tribe. I call it my tribe. These are people that I have coached them over years. All right. So we become very connected, and we grow together, I'll call it. And I said, we want to contribute our time, our effort, our skills to teach them. So that becomes so meaningful, right?
And, I don't know anyone who doesn't get energy off, provided to your point, it's you give back in a voluntary capacity. Your why is, I think, dependent on, so where your why is, I just love to rescue people, that's where you might feel burnt out. But where it is, I just want to see everybody, I want to lift everybody up and do what I can, but I'm still important as part of that. Because, when the drama triangle, you get into the rescuer kind of place and you rescue at the expense of yourself. So you end up helping other people out, but you're depleting your own resources, is what you're talking about. The way of giving back as being part of what makes you whole actually would give you energy, and you don't, it's different. Like, it is kind of that rescuer, but it's not. It comes from a different place. I think that's why it's so important to connect to your why it is you do what you do.
Correct. So that's why the other thing we must have is called life purpose.
Mm,
What's your life purpose, right?
mm,
So my life purpose, I'm gonna mention that in a while. All right, regardless of whether I'm with my clients, all right, I'm with my so-called coachee, that means people come for my group coaching, or whether I'm doing voluntary work, it's the same.
mm. Yeah.
Similar. It's just that, it's just like it's just disguised in a different form, in that sense of disguise in the form, right? You just do different things. So my life purpose is to serve with love and truth, to enable others to live their life purposefully and meaningfully.
Mm,
So it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, who I'm working with, whatever capacity that is, even on a social.
mm,
So even last night, I went to a jazz at my club, 1880. So they had the jazz night thingy, right? And when I walked in, the staff were like excited to see me. Why? Because whenever I'm with them, all right, I would like not talking about their purpose, but it's like I would sort of like, the ripple effect,
yes.
the love and the purpose, and there's meaning in life and all that. It's spill over. Yeah, so in every aspect of life, it's not just now I'm the leader, I'm leading my team, so therefore I got to, portray XYZ.
Mm,
Now it's a 24/7.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about really does, it's about you modeling it to others. So for you to be able to live your life's purpose,
Ah,
or to deliver on that, you actually need to be embodying that and living that for yourself, which is where I think it's important that we talk about sacrifice. Because I think some people think, and particularly in the leadership space, is that for me to serve others, I must sacrifice self. And I don't buy into that. I don't think that has to happen. I'd love your thoughts.
yeah, it's just I'll go back to belief.
Mm,
All right, because belief creates thoughts,
yep.
right? So that's why my life purpose is to serve with love and truth. So I'm very candid. That's why I said I can be so in somebody's face, but that's out of love and truth, not out of like I want to win or my ego. Yeah. So because why? I mean, like a lot of my clients, they come to me a one-on-one. I said, I'm here to help you to get out of your problems, not to stress you.
Mm,
Why is it that? Because sometimes my questioning can be like stressful, but it's being truthful. All right. Once you have the clarity, you realize it. And I often I post question for them to realize I don't give them advice because I cannot live their life. And if I give them advice, it's imposing my belief on them. And that's not in my place. But it's to make them realize. And then when they realize, like I've got my C's as well. But my C's for success is not the 5 C's. The first C is choice.
I love that one.
Yeah, we choose.
All the time, even
Yeah,
when we don't.
yeah. Even we don't choose, we are choosing.
Yeah.
So therefore I said, is that C? So change that 5C to cars, condominium. I change that to choice,
What else have you got on there?
connection,
Oh, yes.
right? Communication,
Mm,
compassion.
Mm,
Isn't all this are so authentic and important and create that harmony amongst people?
mm. Yeah, I
So
love that.
yeah, so the first thing is choice first, right? If once we make the choice that's not aligned first to with our North Star vision, and worse off, if one does not have it, then what are you choosing upon on what, on what aspects? Based on question mark, the
Yeah.
trend, your women fancy, the pressure,
So,
or worse off, I would add this, worse off, many leaders live their life not on their terms, on
mm.
someone else's terms. Yeah, I've seen that again and again. Yeah, go on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, no, I absolutely agree. And it's that like permission to pause and actually look at what is it that you want yourself and move out of that comparison mode and not try to live your life on someone else's terms or
Correct.
the way
Correct.
that someone else wants you to do it. At what at what point, I guess, I mean, have you experienced the whole serve through sacrifice, or were you able just to kind of go, oh, actually, no, I don't need to give up my spare time ahead of someone else because their needs appear to be greater than my own? Have you felt yourself? Because I've definitely felt this sacrificing, particularly early on in my career, where I ex I sacrificed because I thought it was for the greater good, but actually one of your C's, which was a lack of good communication, created this expectation in my mind that
Mm.
didn't actually exist. And I was making sacrifices based on an uncommunicated expectation. And I had to experience exhaustion and burnout a couple of times before I was like, they don't even want this. I'm making, I'm sacrificing, but there's actually nothing at the end of that. No one even knows that I'm sacrificing. I mean, did you experience anything like that, or was that just me?
Well, lots of people experience that. I, I, okay. If you look at sacrifice, um, to some level, we sacrifice as like we have to make time or we have to give up certain things for this. If you look at the sacrifice our time for this and that. So it's not necessarily negative, provided we are doing what their people want.
Mm.
I would say, don't sorry, reframe. Give others what they want and not what you think they want.
Yeah, or
So
need, yeah.
that's where you get zap.
Yeah.
I don't want that. But you think it's good for them, right? So you sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your energy, you sacrifice everything. And then just at the end of the day, like, what? I'm not being appreciated? Or
Mm.
even you turn negative. That's even like, oh, then you get like a bit distorted in your mind. Yeah, I'll
And,
look at that.
and then, so thinking about that is this concept of, letting go and the accepting that
Mhm.
acceptance and I can see how life could be so much better for you, but you're living it. And so, the ability to let go, I've found that has got a little bit easier over time as well.
Right, correct. Especially if it's for loved ones and family members, people that you care and love. All right. So there's a tendency like, this is good for you. I know. I've been through it. I don't want you to suffer because I have suffered, that sort of stuff, especially moms, right? Okay. So you're in a leadership role and then you know what is good, but the younger people don't know, so you want something good. Even your own husband, sometimes men can see better. Okay, anyway. Not that they don't want to see because they're a bit, their vision can be like so focused. But again, if that's not what they want,
Yes.
it's
Then
just
you
going to
just,
create tension,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then people have questioned me, does that mean you do not care then? All right. Or it could be your staff, right? You can see clearly this stuff is going down the tubes. All right. So does it mean that you're not going to say anything? All right. No, I said you can only say what you need to say and walk away.
Mm.
It's for them to realize. Done. All right. Similarly, I was just saying yesterday, I this very senior director of HR. All right. So I said certain things to him. Of course, he looks like when he looked at me like a little bit not too pleased. Then 20 minutes later, I asked him, I said, how do you feel? How do you feel right now? Right? After what I've said to you and all that. And he actually said this, it's really thought-provoking.
Mm.
Yeah. I said, all right. So go and think about it and decide.
Mm.
Choose. After you
Mm.
choose, right? So-called the other C is curiosity.
That's
Be
my favorite C.
right? Be curious what's really out there, or you can do things differently. All right. There's more than one road to go to Rome, right? Don't travel just one road, right? This is not the only road to get to Rome, right? There's more than one road, so to speak, right? So be curious.
Mm.
And after you're curious, you make a choice, then you'll be committed to it. The group follow through.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the C's that, can you see that? It really gives us the alignment and balance rather than we are chasing what I always call the shiny objects.
Yeah, I love that. So you've got your North Star, which kind of sits in the middle, and then I see the five C's that sit around. They're almost like your values or like the behaviors that you live by, the guiding principles, if you want to
Right.
call
Guiding principles. Yeah.
them.
Especially compassion.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
compassion is for self and others as well, right? Not only compassion with others, for self as well. Don't beat yourself up,
Yeah.
right? So actually, you should start from self first, right?
Yeah.
Having compassion. So with this it's like six C's, not five C's, right? With these six C's, then it's more than aligned. So you have the clarity. Even we slip and fall, trip, we can get back up very fast because
Mm.
okay, I got careless. Damage happened, right? We come back.
Yeah.
And not like somebody trip, fall, and then lie there and bleed and stay
Yes.
there for a long time.
Mm. I
Or
love
worse,
that.
get into some I call them distractor. Distractor are behaviors that are not good for us, like overeating, over drinking,
Yeah.
they buying online is a bust thing in Singapore. A lot of professionals, you'd be surprised after if those that have got children, after they put the children to bed, or those that, they've done what they need to do in a day to relieve stress, they go online and buy and buy and buy and buy.
It's an interesting way to stimulate the economy. Nancy, I've got one final question for you. Who's been the most powerful role model that you've had in your life?
Two.
Two? Yeah.
First is my late dad, as I mentioned.
Ah,
Yeah, literally from the time I was in my mother's womb, all right, he has given me the best programming, all right, and it showed me, even I was so young, but I would say it is more energetic in that sense, all right. That's why I said I serve with love
yeah.
because in my DNA, right? I mean, inevitable, right? Sometimes we get irritated, we may even get pissed off, but I can't go beyond that.
Mm,
I can't go beyond that. Yeah, all right. And after that, like done. Okay. So that's energetic. And the other person definitely is our so-called founder of Singapore, our late Lee Kuan Yew. Not for him, we wouldn't be where we are today.
yeah.
Singapore is a red dot in the map, in a world map, right? But yeah, brought Singapore to a world brand, right? You talk about branding. Yeah, he did the branding for us as like Singapore. I mean, it's hard not to know about Singapore. And you
Yeah.
came for a few times, you can see how how you have grown that little dot into everything that we have, right? Whether it's the finance, banking, hospital, school and everything else. It's like great, and infrastructure, everything else. So I grew up watching him, and he's exactly someone that served with love and truth. Although I
Mm,
do not know how to articulate that at a time, but instead of, you know, other leaders elsewhere, I'm not here to mention, all right? Uh, that they only care about themselves, right? He cared for the people.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this year is a 60th year, 60 birthday. Our
Wow.
60th birthday. Yes, correct, in August, right? So he cared for the people. So he went, to make sure the education is right, the hospitals and everything else, like the housing, everything else. So I watch him like really a leader.
Mm. And I can see.
Yeah, I said, go back to YouTube time and again and still watch his stuff. And I watch it as if I'm watching a pop concert. I'll go like, yes, 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 that's the way to go. Yeah. Sorry, you said.
I always love to hear about who people's role models are, because it tells so much about what they value and their own purpose. And you sharing that after what you've shared with us in this conversation makes so much sense. There's so much alignment there with what your dad gave you, as well as, the process or the transition that Singapore has taken over the last 60 years. It's always lovely to kind of watch out. And I think important for us to have role models to help us with these things, isn't it?
Sure, I always said, so we can emulate, not imitate, emulate, right? So I emulate the good qualities of Lee Kuan Yew, his vision, what he thinks about, how he goes about behaving. That's why you see, it's very hard in the entire world when the leader of the country has passed on and you do not find any skeletons in his closet.
Mm. He was true,
True.
aligned, beautiful.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Him and his wife.
Yeah.
You can find skeleton in the closet.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
great.
Yeah. That's why again I'm blessed, right? To have lived, born in this country, live in this country.
Mhm. Nancy, thank you so much for all of the work that you've been doing with so many professionals. I think, yeah, it's amazing to hear, your side of things. I want to thank you for coming on the program and having a conversation with us. If anyone wants to contact you, what's the best way to get in touch?
So it's easy to get me either through LinkedIn, just search. Okay. Nancy Ho Coach. You'll find that Singapore. All right. Or my email address is simple to remember, nancy@nancyho.net.
Beautiful.
In any case, if you just search Nancy Ho Coach, life coach Singapore, I'll show up in a lot of platforms.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks again. And thank you everyone for listening. I look forward to another dynamic leader conversation with you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you got value out of this episode. Check out my programs at shelleyflett.com or reach out for a conversation at shelley@shelleyflett.com.